As you heard, I'm Chris Manske, and for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to share with you some thoughts that I call the wrong crisis. So we'll look at what people are typically worried about, something that is actually worth paying attention to, and then I'll close with a simple solution that I hope is interesting to everyone here. So these are the headlines. This is what people come in and talk to my advisory team about on a regular basis. They're worried about recession, and then the big players, North Korea, Russia, terrorism. How will it affect our financial independence? And the thing about these kind of worries is that they exist in a vacuum in a way. As soon as you expand that to include the fact that these things have happened before, then it's a different story. What if terrorists attack, like they have in the past? What if, there's a recession like has happened in the past? We will get through it. How we'll get through it, I think some will do better than others, and I feel so strongly about that. I've written a book on it, as Pamela had mentioned, and I'm really excited that it'll soon be coming out. But these are the things that are the headlines, and they're not going to ruin us. They aren't system-destroying changes, but there is a system destroyer that is occurring right now all around us. So to make my point, I'll tell two factual stories, one from the world of chess and one from the world of the Olympics. And I'd like to start with chess because in that place, in that arena, the irreversible system-destroying change has already occurred. So we have to go back in time to May of 1997. This is when IBM's Deep Blue computer challenged the world chess champion, Garry Kasparov, and everyone at the time was shocked when the computer won. It's not shocking to us today, but back then, nobody thought that computers' computational ability would be stronger than a human's creativity. And so it was a big deal. And after that happened, chess changed. The game of chess at the international level was no longer winnable by a human. And the winning teams were computers paired with humans. If you paired a computer up with a human, it would beat a computer, it would beat a human. For about 14 years, it was a team effort in order to be at the top of the game in chess. And after that, humans started to become useless on the team. And that really started in 2011. That's the year that IBM's Watson won the game show Jeopardy! Some of you all might remember that. That was the first gong on the bell of the machine winning without the need of a human in the game of chess. So for the next few years, the computers would battle each other. These programs would play each other to see who was the best in the game of chess. And the way these tournaments worked is that they would play each other 100 times in a row. And the winner would win 4 times, the loser would win 2 or 3 times, and the rest of those 100 games were ties. And that's the way the computers would battle each other. And after about 5 years or so, it became really clear that this program called Stockfish 8 was the unassailable world champion at chess. It just was unbeatable. Until December of 2017, when something really odd happened. Google asked Stockfish 8 if they could have a just for fun, let's see what happens matchup between their new AI that they called AlphaZero and the chess champion Stockfish 8. So this is what the matchup looked like in a comic book world. So obviously the Hulk beats up Bruce Banner easily. Stockfish 8 computationally was supposed to win. Experience-wise, it was supposed to win. When you look at the stats here, centuries of human experience programmed into its files. It had the equivalent of decades of computer experience playing the game of chess at its cyber fingertips. On the other hand, the Bruce Banner AlphaZero was not even given the rules of the game until the day of the match. So 0 experience. And that's not all. So if you look computationally, the Hulk could do 70 million chess positions per second in analyzation. And the Alpha Zero skinny guy could only do 7,000. I'll break those numbers up a little bit better for you. Alpha Zero could look at 8 chess positions on the board in the same time that Stockfish 8 could look at almost 10,000. Clearly, Alpha Zero is supposed to lose. They played their 100 games, and you know that normally one of the programs was going to win 5 or 6, the other one might win 2 or 3. Alpha Zero won 28, and the Hulk won 0. So chess masters have analyzed these games, and they say that they see strategies and techniques that have never been seen before. Some of the moves were so unconventional that it's fair to say they were creative, which goes back to 1997. Maybe we were right. Creativity is better than computational capability. So, the point is that I'm trying to make is that this artificial intelligence called Alpha Zero, it went from complete ignorance to total mastery in just a few hours. In all human chess matches today, these guys, the judges, they're trying to find computer-aided cheating. And how do they do it? Today, they're looking for spectacularly creative tactics on the chessboard. If it is incredibly creative, that is the sign that it was not the human, it was the machine. The very thing that 20 years ago was deemed impossible, it's now the red flag that is used to keep the humans honest. There's an argument that this AI is only effective in limited scope. Games like chess where there's a limited number of possibilities. And that's why I'd like to share the second story with you from the Olympics. The pattern is pretty similar. If you are a student of Yuval Noah Harari, you'll have recognized some of the chess story that I've just shared with you. This next bit was brought to my attention by Louise Radnofsky. She's a Columbia and Oxford grad who she has been reporting now with the Wall Street Journal for over a decade. So in the Olympics, gymnastics is kind of a special thing because bias is a part of the game. The sport accepts it and understands it's unavoidable. The human judge at the highest level, their eye cannot see everything that happens. And so the things that they do see end up being more important to one judge and less important to another judge. This isn't a problem, it's just the way it is. It's accepted. Well, in May of 2017, the company Fujitsu claimed that they had created an AI that could judge gymnastics. And it took about 2 years, but after a lot of demonstrations, it was finally approved by the International Federation of Gymnastics on a trial basis to do some judging in a real competition. And that just happened. That was this year, March of 2019. And it was only given a sliver of the competition. It was the individual all-around World Cup that took place in Europe. And different cities, well, one of those cities, Stuttgart, Germany, Fujitsu's AI was permitted to judge a little bit of that competition. The judging was such a resounding success that right now, Fujitsu's AI is contractually obligated to judge 1/2 of all of the gymnastic events in Tokyo next year at the highest level of sports in the world. But that's not all. Right now, that AI is contractually committed to judge every single gymnastics event in Paris in 2024. So we have a clear timeline here for how long it will be until the human gymnastics judge is completely irrelevant. And at the start of this, a couple years ago, the naysayers, they had that exact same comment of, well, it's not going to help with creativity. These gymnasts have a creative side of their routine, and the AI is not going to recognize that. But here we are. I mean, the timeline is clear. And the gymnastics world is now behind it 100%. If we've got such a clear timeline, if we can say that this pattern that we've got in Olympics and in chess, that it could exist in other arenas, we have a trend worth paying attention to. This is a crisis of effectiveness. You know, if it could happen in chess and Olympics, why not also in the game of productivity, the game of occupation, our jobs? Now, I'm not saying that we're not going to have jobs in the future. I'm not saying no one's going to have any possible work. I'm just saying that this time it's different. In the past, we've told the story of this guy here. The stagecoach driver, he can learn new skills and he can drive a taxi. And maybe learn new skills and he'll drive a different vehicle in the future. But that's not really the story. This story is the story of the horse, where the engine now makes the horse obsolete. And I think when I give this talk, people first reaction is, yeah, but people aren't horses, they can learn new skills. Well, think about what I just said about the stagecoach driver. It's not that you can't learn new skills, of course we can, we're just not needed to learn new skills. Stagecoach driver to taxi driver to a car that needs no driver. It's a different story. There will never be another human chess master at the global level. And soon, there will never be another human gymnastics judge, I should say. But don't take my word for it. This is the definitive expert's opinion that just came out. And I don't suppose anyone here has read the MIT FAO report, but I'll quickly summarize for you. It's put together by a group of academics and scientists that are all connected to MIT. And it's led by the university's president himself, Raphael Rafe. They spent over 2 years studying and investigating the effects of emerging technology on the workplace, on occupation. And you have to realize they are not objective. They love robots, they love technology, and their report is filled with the message that everything's going to be fine and robots are not going to take over the world. But what's also in that report, it very clearly, definitively states that the jobs that make up the world's middle class, they're disappearing, and that that will shrink to zero. And what I find fascinating about this report is two things. One is that this is not something we're talking about like our grandchildren are dealing with. It's the next 20 years. And two, these brilliant people make an interesting argument that it is not technology's fault. They say that the shrinking middle class and the loss of jobs to technology, they say don't blame the robots, instead blame America's love of, and I'm quoting, the corporate shareholder that results in policies that encourage capital investments instead of investments in labor. So it seems that if you're a liberal at MIT or a conservative business owner in Houston, Texas, we can agree there's going to be less jobs. We just might disagree on what the cause of it is. This is affecting lawmakers as well. Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, just finished a whirlwind of effort that really was just from the heart. And the whole point was to try to convince lawmakers on Capitol Hill that there needs to be human oversight of facial recognition technologies. The EU is probably ahead of us on this. They have in place now a new law that's called the General Data Protection Regulation. And that establishes the individual right to know and challenge automated decisions. Another institute, RAND, you might know is the global nonprofit, nonpartisan research firm. RAND is advising our country that we need processes in place that will allow humans to appeal machine-made decisions. And those appeals need to be heard by other humans. I am not talking about the future. This is right now. So, when I say that this is happening right now, it might be interesting to talk about why is now special. So you had heard in my intro that I'm a member of Mensa. A fellow Mensan, his name is Nikhil Chirla. He's got Stanford University roots. He teaches AI programming online, and he says that it's this stuff, the hardware. It's not a programming and software accomplishment as much as it is a hardware issue. Google's tensor processing units, they are conceivably thousands of times more powerful than anything that existed just 5-ish years ago. So in a real sense, AlphaZero, the Bruce Banner that is now the chess master, couldn't have existed 5 years ago, which begs the question, what's to come? Well, this slide, I'm trying to show a shrinkage from here to here. And the reason is because in May of this year, 2 scientists from MIT, they successfully shrunk the neural network. This is the hardware that gives AI its intelligence. They successfully shrunk it 90% and still got the same smarts out of it. That's incredible. And normally in technology, we hear about things doubling in capacity or halving in size. A 90% reduction, I think I'd like to try to show you another way. So here it is. We've got our full-size screen. There's the hardware. We're gonna shrink it by half. This is the first iteration. A lot of white on the screen now. We shrink it by half. But let's do it again. We're gonna go through another iteration. Now we're at 25% of the original size. Let's do it again. We're gonna shrink it by half again. We're at 12.5% of the original size, and we still have not shrunk 90%. It's astounding, and it is right now. So I'd like to conclude my talk now by saying that tomorrow is coming. Tomorrow is here. A group of people who cannot offer meaningful value and therefore cannot receive meaningful pay. That's if you agree with some of the greatest minds of our time right now. But there is a very easy way to be ready for this. This is not going to happen tomorrow. And I say it's very easy because usually the most powerful ideas, they're simple and we probably already know. So first, live beneath your means. You've got to have extra money every month. And what do you do with that extra money? Don't buy things unless it makes you more money. If you're buying the fancy house and the big fancy car, well, you're showing people that you used to have money. If we agree that this crisis of effectiveness is approaching, it's probably better to buy things that make you money, that grow your net worth, that grow your annual income. My suggestion is to buy and hold publicly traded companies. If you have company ownership, buying and holding stocks, that means that you're going to reap the benefits that all these companies are working towards as they are firing people and replacing them with machines. As a part owner of that business, you're going to benefit. As those machines work and get better and better at being productive and being useful, you and your heirs are going to reap the benefits, are going to reap the rewards of their effort. In the past, you think like serfs and lords of the manor, land was the commodity that provided security and stability. Maybe in the future, it's going to be machines. Who owns the most robots? I think the best way to own the land of the future is to own publicly traded companies as they continue to adapt and use AI. And so it's no surprise to have an investment guy say that you need to have an investment advisor and that you should invest. But I hope that you found the way that we got here interesting. I hope that you're intrigued enough to check out your competition, because we definitely have a competitor who is not seated in the room. Maybe it's just hiding in our pockets. So with that, I do have time for a question or two. Are there any questions? I see one in the corner.
Chris, great presentation. It's always great to hear how mastermind thinks about the future. But like with all the crazy movies and all the crazy books coming out, do you really feel that, or how much of the threat of all the technology? It seems like the advancements that we're making is kind of turning around to bite us in the butt and become our enemies. So you wouldn't mind just kind of elaborating on that?
I think that's a really common question, Kyle. People, they know about this man versus machine concept. It's very theatrical. And I use the word theatrical because it's not logical. Theatrical means that it stirs emotion, it gets people to buy movie tickets. You've seen The Terminator, you've seen the movie The Matrix. But I don't think it's logical. I mean, typically when we're thinking about this man versus machine, the idea is, that we're destroying the earth, and so the machines will figure out that we're the problem and they'll try to destroy us. But logically, there are some assumptions in that I don't think machines would make. It doesn't make sense. And some of the essays I've read have influenced me to think that. I'll share it with you quickly. An assumption is that, well, the earth is all we've got, and we don't. I mean, we've got space exploration. We could be on the moon. We could be on other planets of the solar system. I think machines would probably want to innovate and to send life beyond Earth rather than say we need to kill off humans. Or another example is that we're not really using the Earth to its full potential. With innovation, we could live in the oceans, on the oceans, or just at a bare minimum, just spread out. Our city centers create a lot of the toxicity that people think of when they think of the man versus machine battle, and just by spreading out a bit, that becomes less. But the last thought I'll leave with you on that question, and I think that's the only question I've got time for this morning, so sorry, but the last thought I'll leave with you on that is there is a little bit of an ego in the man versus machine fear, and the ego is that we are separate from nature. We are separate from the world, and the machines would recognize that and want to kill us off. But we're not. We're part of nature. We're an animal, and probably machines logically would see birds, people, whales, all pretty much similar, just with different capabilities. So I don't have more time. I hope that you enjoyed the talk. Thanks for joining us this morning.